Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go up to the wrong side because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system.
This morning, New York's Democratic Attorney General Letitia James defiant, denying any wrongdoing, and denouncing her indictment secured by a top prosecutor handpicked by President Trump.
These charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost.
A federal grand jury indicted James Thursday on charges of bank fraud and lying to a financial institution. Those charges coming 3 years after James, as New York Attorney General, sued Mr. Trump, his eldest two sons, and the Trump Organization for fraud, alleging they lied to banks and others about the value of their assets. James and Mr. Trump have long been at odds. She campaigned on promises to sue him.
He's going to know my name personally.
And Trump has frequently attacked her.
She's a horrible, horrible human being.
Just weeks ago, the president publicly urging his attorney general to prosecute James. In the same post, also targeting another political foe, former FBI Director James Comey. Comey was indicted by a grand jury days later on charges of lying to Congress. This week, he pleaded not guilty.
And I'm innocent. So let's have a trial.
Both cases led by a close Trump ally, Lindsey Halligan, his former personal attorney, who the president recently appointed to the job despite her having no experience as a prosecutor. The prosecutor she replaced was ousted late last month after he determined there was not enough evidence to charge Comey or James, according to two federal law enforcement officials. Late Thursday, Halligan said in part, "No one is above the law." Now, Democrats say President Trump is weaponizing the Department of Justice. Many in the Republican Party support the administration's move.
I do think there ought to be accountability for the bad actors here.
But Republican Senator Tom Tillis says he hopes the action will not undermine prosecutors' credibility.
They're going to get measured based on an outcome, so I hope they've done their homework and they've got a valid basis for the indictment.
And about the president's public post calling for prosecutions that we showed you there, an administration official tells NBC News the president thought he was sending Attorney General Pam Bondi a direct message and that he shrugged it off when he learned it was public. Among those he mentioned in that post, California Senator Adam Schiff, who helped lead the charge in the president's first impeachment trial. Schiff responding overnight that those on what he calls the president's enemy list will not be intimidated and will stand up to this president. Craig.
Oh, it's amazing how the person who swore up and down that the Department of Justice was out to get him is now using the Department of Justice as his own personal litigation / law dog. Anyway, today's date, October 15, 2025. This is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the weekend and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we are a news podcast. We do pride ourselves on providing the best sources of news from reputable sources with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, Newsmax, wherever you get your extreme left, extreme right views from. We simply don't do that. At the same time, guys, we do try to watch our language on the show, but let's be honest, words do fly. At the same time, guys, we do show things that might be too graphic for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. But yes, the current AG, Letitia James, is now under fire for basically doing her job. Yes, she was influential in getting the conviction against Taco and his family for basically defrauding 20 years plus of their holdings in order to secure bigger loans. She's also the reason why there's a judgment hanging over his head. Still there. Doesn't matter what he does. He's still a convict. He's still a felon. He still has that very large, sizable judgment over his head. But right now, because he's in the president's seat, nobody will have the guts to go after him. But it is amazing to me because we just sat there and said 3 weeks ago, I want to say, where where Taco had pretty much told Pam Bondi, his lapdog, who's the AG, I want you to go after my enemies. And it's amazing that two other prosecutors were looking into this and said, we can't, there's not enough evidence to go after these people. Not to go after Letitia James, not enough to go after James Comey. So what does Taco do? Fire them. It installs a loyalist. He installs somebody with next to nothing in experience, just enough to actually have a law license, just so they could prosecute. And this is going to be fun to watch. Now, I say this because I say this with a little bit of caution, because remember Fannie Willis in Georgia? Because of his workings and pushing the cases back till he became president, to where he basically, tried to say that DA had an improper relationship, then actually getting the prosecutor thrown off, then finally getting the DA thrown off once he became president. This is all his way of trying to make his cases go away. And all but two of his cases have gone away. The Manhattan judgment is still there. Currently, the election interference case in Georgia is still quote unquote there. But let's be honest, he's going to use his influence to put a prosecutor in there, and that prosecutor is going to drop the case. Even though it was a beyond clear-cut case that Taco did literally interfere in a state's election. I'm just saying, it's right freaking there. But alas, we'll keep up with these stories because, again, Pam Bondi, who swears them down because, you remember from her hearing, didn't answer any questions except, had to be Trump's biggest cheerleader, is now doing his handiwork of trying, along with his handiwork, and then with another prosecutor, again, a prosecutor that has no experience, is now trying to go after Letitia James. And I'm going to be honest, she is going to, if she's anything like Fannie Willis, and I'm assuming Miss James is, Trump doesn't have a good solid history of winning over smart, intelligent black women. In fact, he's had his ass handed to him. Only him and John Walker could be in that same group for all those that like Marvel. That being said, it is day 14, and just like the Semisonic song, closing time is still happening. But it can't be that bad of a shutdown. Get it?
The White House says it has started laying off thousands of federal workers. This comes as the government shutdown now is in its 10th day with no end in sight. Trump administration budget chief Russ Vought posted on X saying, quote, "RIFs have begun." RIF stands for reductions in force, meaning they are permanently cutting jobs. President Trump has previously threatened to fire furloughed federal workers if Congress didn't reopen the government. While Democrats and Republicans remain deadlocked, federal workers who are still employed are starting to get reduced paychecks. That started today. Joining us now is NBC News White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor. Yamiche, typically during a shutdown, federal workers are furloughed, right? They can't work, but they're not laid off. It's just temporary. So what are we learning about these new moves and these potential firings?
Well, what we're learning is that the Trump administration is now going far past the traditional furloughs that you just mentioned and now moving to permanently fire what sounds like thousands of federal workers. We haven't gotten a clear number of the people impacted here, but the White House is telling us that it's in the thousands, which is what the threat was. And I also want to read to you some of the departments that we know have already been impacted. They are the Department of Interior, Homeland Security, Treasury, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Commerce, Education, Energy, Health and Human Services, and Housing and Urban Development. What we also don't know is which departments or which offices within these different agencies have been impacted. There's also a big question of whether or not the military is going to get paid. I've been going back and forth with the Office of Management and Budget to see what's going on there. And also the current director of OMB, Russ Vought, he was an author on Project 2025. And this is a long stated goal of the Project 2025 to have these mass layoffs of federal workers. They really wanted to reduce the federal workforce, Kate.
Yeah, Yamiche, I believe the president even said at one point that this is sort of what we had promised we were going to do in this administration. He called it an opportunity, right, to take advantage of right now. There's new legal action, though, already being taken as a result of these layoffs. What's happening legally?
That's right. Just to go back to the point of the president in Project 2025, when he was running, he said he didn't know Project 2025. He had nothing to do with it. Of course, we knew that a number of Trump allies were authors of Project 2025. And now he is saying, hey, we highlighted this and highlighting the fact that Russ Vogt was connected to Project 2025. And as you said, the lawsuits have now started to roll in. Last week, the largest union representing federal workers filed a lawsuit trying to preempt this. And now they are continuing with that lawsuit. I want to read to you part of a statement from that union's president. It says, in AFGE's 93 years of existence under several presidential administrations, including during President Trump's first term, no president has decided to ever fire thousands of furloughed workers during a government shutdown. They say they're currently challenging President Trump's illegal, unprecedented abuse of power, and they will not stop.
And all I can sit there and say is, I told you so. We sat there and said what was going to happen. And just a reminder, although at the time of that news publication, it was day 10, it's now day 14. Now about to be 3 weeks since the government's been shut down. And again, this is your daily reminder. Republicans and Democrats, mainly specifically representative senators, are still being paid. In a government shutdown, your politicians are still being paid. Federal contractors, government workers are not being paid. Most of them are on furlough, which means they are not getting paid. And for the essential workers, I'm talking TSA, FAA controllers, are also being put to work without pay. But we'll get into that, especially with the FAA controllers momentarily. But yes, also a reminder, Republicans have majority in the Senate. Republicans have majority in the House. Republicans have a left-leaning SCOTUS. And they also have the executive branch. Republicans have pushed forward major legislation this entire year without Democratic support. And after all that's said and done, you're going to sit there and tell me that the reason why the government is shut down is because the party with the least amount of control is the problem. Even though Speaker of the House Mike Johnson did also say earlier this week that he will not open the floor back up for Democrats for a vote unless the Democrats drop their one condition of extending the ACA and Obamacare, which again, if they didn't, everybody's premiums would double or more. Especially with the fact that the healthcare marketplaces are about to open back up for some, if not already in some states. And yet somehow it's the Democrats' fault. Right. I am just saying, guys, and I don't mean it's like a broken record, but yes, this is all Republicans. Whenever there is a Republican administration, the economy tanks, or either close in, or pretty much about to be in a recession. And what happened when Taco got his first run? We had a shutdown. We almost had a recession. And it feels like history is repeating itself. Have we not learned anything? And the reason why I was going to wait to bring up the air traffic controller people, the ones that are responsible for making planes take off and land safely, and the fact that, hey, now you're not getting paid, but because you're essential, you're going to show up at your job anyway. Well, as we reported last podcast, that a lot of these air traffic controller personnel are calling out sick because, why work for free? Well, it looks like the Secretary of Transportation has threatened to lay off thousands of federal employees if that's the threat. They will lay off these employees if they don't come back to work. Think about that for a second. That if you are at a job and you are being told, hey, you're not getting paid, but you're essential. We need you here because our airlines depend on you. Without air traffic controllers, airplanes are unsafe in the sky or on the ground. They're completely and utterly unsafe. And you have the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, who might as well just be Douche Duffy, is sitting there saying, well, we have a lot of problem children. Let me get this straight, Mr. Duffy, Douche Duffy. So let's say, because again, he's government, he's still getting paid. So, and like I said beforehand, if you are getting paid to solve a problem, regardless of everybody else's situation, you're cool. I find it hard to believe that you're motivated to solve the problems of others if you yourself are already taken care of regardless. And you have Douche Duffy sitting there saying, quote unquote, if we have a continual small subset of controllers that don't show up to work and they're the problem children, if we have some on our staff that are dedicated like we need, we're going to let them go. I can't have people not showing up for work. Again, this is how much of a douche Duffy is. So you realize air traffic controllers they have bills or families or all the above. No matter whether or not you have a job, the bills don't stop. If there's one thing I will say above all else, bills do not stop, regardless if you have a job or not. At the same time, these air traffic controllers, they're just like us. We're all 1 or 2 paychecks away from being out in the street. That being said, it should be the Secretary of Transportation trying to work with the Democrats, trying to work with the Republicans and say, hey, my people can't go to work because they got to worry about how the bills are getting paid. And instead of me threatening to fire them like a dumbass, maybe I need to go back to Republicans and say, we need to get the government up and running before we have a full-blown scale revolution on our hands. Because if the American people learned anything, they've seen what happened in France, they've seen what happened in India, they've seen what happened in Egypt. And if you're like the movie Ants, that's the one thing that one bug was scared of. Once they figure out that there are more of them than us, we are done. And I'm not saying rebellion is not going to happen. I'm not saying revolution shouldn't happen. But I'm just saying, when you have a mob of people that are going hungry while you yourself being taken care of, history repeats itself. But moving right along, guys, I did want to cover this because Taco said, well, not everybody's going to be out on the cold. Nobody was going to be out on a paycheck. Oh, right. I need to make sure that ICE and the National Guard are getting paid because I'm sending them everywhere.
Well, to Washington now, where President Trump has ordered his defense secretary to continue paying military service members despite the ongoing government shutdown. Julie Sirkin is at the White House. And Julie, given the shutdown, where is that money coming from?
Savannah, President Trump says he will pay troops on October 15th without Congress's help. I'm told by 2 sources directly familiar, the White House notified lawmakers they are shifting funds around to do it. It comes as more than 1 million Americans who work for the federal government are without pay tonight and thousands more bracing for layoffs. And speaking of the military, a federal appeals court tonight blocking the president from deploying National Guard on the streets of Chicago and nearby towns. But the judge is letting the administration keep troops there under federal control for now.
And Julie, we've also got medical updates on both President Trump and former President Biden. What are you hearing?
Yeah, Savannah, the president's doctor says he's in, quote, excellent overall health and that he received the COVID booster. We also have an update on former President Biden, who's battling an aggressive form of prostate cancer. He is now undergoing radiation therapy, but is said to be doing well.
I'm sorry, but Taco having an excellent care of health is the biggest load of caca that I've ever heard. You're telling me a guy that looks more morbidly obese, looks like it's like his white privilege is expiring, and you're going to say he's the perfect picture of health? Whichever doctor said that, their credentials, I'm like, who did he get his exam by? RFK? That's the only thing that makes sense to me, because only his tail would sit there and say that Trump's actually healthy. But I digress. But you saw what Taco did. Because if he didn't pay the military, I'm just saying, the National Guardsmen, they would have sat there and went like, we're not going. Because he has to make sure that his modern-day Gestapo, known as ICE, and National Guardsmen are paid. Because, again, the last thing you want is an army that has not been paid. Because, again, history will repeat itself. But that's where we are right now. That Chicago, much like Los Angeles, much like Portland, Oregon, are all about to be under siege because Taco has taken upon himself to say that he wants to make cities safer, which again, these cities didn't have problems. It's amazing that he wants to go after Democratic cities and not his own because again, he wants to basically show force. And for somebody that doesn't know what Project 2025 is, he's following it to an effing T. But speaking of things that aren't making sense, going right back to our defense secretary, I refuse to call him that other name, never sober Pete Hegseth, our secretary of defense, has turned around and announced, and this was announced earlier last week, that we will have a Qatar Air Force facility at a U.S. base in Idaho. Now, Again, drunk at Never Sober Pete Hegseth did announce this last Friday that will allow the Qatari Emmy Air Force Base to build a facility at the Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho. Now, this also allows Qatari pilots to receive training right along with U.S. soldiers. This in no way is a foreign military base. They keep saying that. Even though the funny thing is, the Singaporean Air Force also has a presence at the Mountain Home Base, but they're treating it like a all-is-welcome Air Force facility. I mean, here's the problem with all this, guys. The reason why I keep mentioning the Qatar is because I want to say almost 2 months ago, we had announced that they gifted Taco with a Boeing plane, to which Taco sat there and wants to have that retrofitted and be his new Air Force One. And we all kept saying the entire time, this feels like an effing bribe. And I can't help but wonder, now that we have a Qatari Air Force facility at a U.S. base that, quote unquote, isn't a base for them, because we don't have any foreign bases in the U.S. But the problem is the optics of it all. They basically purchased their way into the U.S. They basically got their facility built on a U.S. base in a U.S. state. And it's amazing how the two chicken hawks that worry about borders, mostly Taco and Never Sober Pete Hegseth, the main ones crying about the border is the main ones letting those in that pay their way in. Because, in their minds, if you pay your way in, that's the true form of immigrating into the U.S., which I think is, again, bullshit. But we'll follow that story as it goes along, because not a lot of people are happy. Not even Marjorie Taylor Greene. Do you know how messed up it is when you get her to literally be the voice of reason? That's a dark ass day. But speaking of things that don't make any sense, and literally and figuratively they don't, Taco is still in news. Why? Because he is posthumously awarding Charlie Kirk, who's no longer with us, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. His wife, Erica, is accepting. I'm effing sorry, because I say this all the time, and I will continue to say it, because somebody's got to. What is this man known for? And I'm just being honest. What is this man known for? Because everybody tries to say, oh, well, he was such a great debater. He was such this and this. No. He has sat there and said, and I'm going to repeat this every time it's being brought up. Charlie Kirk was not a trailblazer. Charlie Kirk was not innovative. Charlie Kirk was nothing more than a self-serving white nationalist bigot that literally saw an opportunity to make money and effing ran with it. That's all it is. That's all he is. And I'm not, and again, you can say I'm speaking ill of the dead if you want to, but I'm speaking on the fact of what his actions were. Created Turning Point USA. Literally went on college campuses having quote-unquote debates when it was really just clickbait he wanted to use for his show. Touted insane rhetoric about people of color and women. At the same time, believed his own BS enough to where he was almost like a young Bill O'Reilly, which means he was a dick even back then. So I'm sorry. To really wrap this up with a bow. Oh, by the way, his wife must be through mourning, because she set up a dating app as soon as that man was in the ground. I'm not saying they had an arrangement. I'm just saying grifter's gonna grift. The thing I'm getting at is this guy gets one of the highest civilian honors you can get in our country, all because he spouted hate, he grifted off hate, and it might have been that same hate that led to his demise. Because again, when you grift off hate and ignorance, what makes you think you're absolved from it? But moving right along, guys, I do got to cover this as well, because even though this is international waters, Taco is taking a victory lap, because as he said, there is now peace in Israel. And yeah, we'll get to it. It's full of shit.
From the moment he landed in Israel, the words "thank you" visible from Air Force One and billboards here expressing gratitude. President Trump basked in the praise of a country that credits him more than its own prime minister for today's long-awaited reunions. The president's name echoing through Israel's parliament as he touted his landmark diplomatic success.
This is the end of the age of terror and death. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East.
Netanyahu praising his American ally.
Donald Trump is the greatest friend that the state of Israel has ever had in the White House.
Going off script, the president called on his Israeli counterpart to pardon Netanyahu, who was indicted for allegedly accepting expensive gifts, which he denies.
Cigars and champagne, who the hell cares about that?
The president then heading to Egypt for a peace signing ceremony with Arab nations and other world leaders who backed the deal.
Peace has been achieved after untiring efforts. Efforts led by President Trump.
NBC's Keir Simmons with the Italian Prime Minister.
Do you believe that President Trump will manage to turn this into an actual peace for the Middle East?
I'm absolutely optimistic on this. President Trump opened it, but we have to help him.
Help with so many potential challenges still ahead, like disarming Hamas and rebuilding Gaza that the president largely glossed over today, while declaring the war is over.
This took 3,000 years to get to this point. Can you believe it? And it's going to hold up, too. It's going to hold up.
And Peter, listening to President Trump today, he's hoping this agreement is just a starting point.
Tom, that's right. President Trump is looking to build on the momentum from this deal to help reshape this region, even looking to expand his Abraham Accords that normalize relations between Israel and other Arab nations, and suggesting a possible peace deal with Iran that just a couple of months ago Israel and the U.S. were bombing. The president today said this deal will hold up.
So here's the thing, and I say this ever so succinctly. He's taking a victory lap because what he's done, he's always done in the past. He takes somebody else's credit. He takes somebody else's work and claim it for his own. Because a lot of people, I know a lot of people, especially those on Fox News, oh, look what they'll never give Trump his due. Trump sat there and may have actually achieved peace in the Middle East. What president can say that? Well, here's the problem with that story. When President Biden and Netanyahu did have a plan in place, it was supposed to go into effect to where it was supposed to help a ceasefire with Hamas and Palestine. And here's the thing. As that plan was getting implemented, of course, Taco took office and talked with the U.S.'s largest welfare queen, Netanyahu of Israel, and they decided, we don't like that plan. And next thing you know, we had the conflict of Israel bombed Hamas, and then Hamas bombed Israel, and then we had fighting, conflict, and death. Now what wound up happening is Taco basically took Biden's plan and basically said, he basically written his name on the work. It's like having somebody who's never done anything in a group project come at the very end and take credit for it like it was their idea. Taco, which is what he did. Took the credit for taking Biden's old peace deal and making it his own. But I love how you factor there and said, there is now peace. There's not. Because all you did was negotiate a ceasefire. Both sides did trade hostages and the remains of bodies. But the thing is, peace is not achieved. And yet, this kind of leads to the next thing about what Taco wants, because he was denied the Nobel Peace Prize. And let me guess, because now they're trying to say, oh, well, with peace in the Middle East, this has got to put him at the forefront. Let me tell you something about the Nobel Peace Prize. Better men and women have won it. And I'm just going to go ahead and say this. With the Middle East, I sat there and said for the longest time, as long as the U.S. intervenes, there will never be peace in the Middle East. This ceasefire is exactly that, a ceasefire. It is not a sign of peace. It is not a disarmament of arms from Hamas. It is not anything except Taco looking at the Gaza Strip, where him and his rich friends are trying to see what they can do with a bombed out, depleted country and try to make golf courses out of it. All I gotta say is give it time. But it's amazing to me that this man is he is so obsessed with winning Nobel Peace Prize, even though he's done nothing to deserve it. Even knocking President Obama. Well, what did he get? What did he get Nobel Peace Prize for? He didn't do anything. I can go off the bat off one term under Obama is worth 2 of tacos. And I can take the first 6 months of what President Obama did and say that he did more than Taco did in literally 8 months. But I digress. I'm just saying, the Nobel Peace Prize Committee will never consider Trump, and thank goodness for that. But move right along from Nobel Peace Prize to Chicago, because we did hear in one story that, well, they are holding under federal observation of the city. I wonder, just because you include troops doesn't mean conflict happens, right?
This morning, tensions running high in multiple areas around President Trump's immigration crackdown. Overnight, Los Angeles County declaring a state of emergency in response to ICE raids. Officials voting to clear the way for financial assistance for residents they say have been negatively impacted by immigration raids. While in Chicago, clashes on the streets getting heated. Homeland Security says federal officers faced a hostile crowd after an undocumented immigrant rammed a Border Patrol vehicle while trying to flee an immigration operation. After a pursuit, agents crashed into the vehicle to stop it and arrested the suspects when a crowd grew. Chicago police responded to the scene and say some people threw objects at federal agents who deployed tear gas, exposing some in the crowd, including 13 Chicago police officers.
This type of escalation is what is going to cause harm. It's not the people of Chicago, but it's the federal agents.
It's the latest flare-up during the Trump administration's so-called Operation Midway Blitz. DHS posting this video celebrating 1,500 immigration-related arrests in the Chicago area since early September.
All of these cities, we want to clean them up.
But the dramatic confrontations come as Homeland Security officials are warning Mexican drug cartels are now offering cash bounties to target ICE officers and other federal agents, including $5,000 to $10,000 for kidnapping or assaulting officers, and up to $50,000 for the assassination of high-ranking officials.
Our message to the cartels and these criminal rings, we're not backing down.
Now, back to the clashes that you saw here in Chicago yesterday. One of those detained was a 15-year-old boy, an American citizen. His attorneys say he was zip-tied for hours but released overnight. Governor Pritzker pointing to his arrest among many, saying that DHS needs to answer for what he's calling unchecked attacks on Chicago residents.
You know, I love the fact that Fox News is going to sit there and say, well, yes, they're putting bounties. They're putting bounties on our heads, and we're not going to back down. Okay, go across the border and go deal with them. Because I'm sorry, if the excuse, and I say excuse, if the excuse is that DHS and the Gestapo ICE are saying that cartels are putting bounties on the heads of their officers, more if it's a high-ranking official. If it's a high-ranking officer, if they're putting bounties on their heads, let's just do a little logic here. If they kidnap a ICE officer, if they kidnap a DHS officer in the same country where both these organizations exist, how are they going to collect? How? Because I'm sorry, I don't think you're going to find cartel members in the same spots you've been going after folks. Because ICE and Gestapo have been going to people, places of work. They have been going to schools, talking to children without their parents. And I can keep going down the list because it seems the ones that are acting like the terrorists are ICE and DHS. But I doubt, sincerely doubt, that you will find cartel members in the carpool lane of an elementary school. But it is amazing to me that, again, it's whatever you involve a armed group and you deputize them for law enforcement, why are we not surprised that conflict follows? And if you haven't noticed, that's all ICE and DHS has been. I mean, unlawful arrest that they pretty much are releasing people after they find out that they messed up. But here's my thing. You want to know how we fix that? Sue them. That's my thing. It should be a class action lawsuit against DHS, against the executive branch, against ICE. That's how you hurt them. You hurt them legally because they are doing a whole lot of things illegally. I mean, hell, we just covered how SCOTUS literally just gave them the ability to racial profile without consequence. And I'm sorry, I don't feel bad for law enforcement. Well, not for law enforcement of ICE and DHS, because they don't give a crap about local police. They will tear gas a crowd, even with local police in the actual crowd. And that just goes to show you that they don't care. If there was ever a time for local law enforcement to be like, we ain't with them, we're not with them. If there was ever a time for local law enforcement to stand up and be like, no, we're not with DHS, we're not with ICE, that's not what we do. If there was ever a time for law enforcement to change the optics of how people look at them, golden opportunity. That's all I'm saying. Instead of being silent like I usually are. But I digress. Also, what has also happened this week, because again, because Taco can't get the Department of Education, he can't outright dismantle them. So what does he do? Uses the shutdown to literally take out the special education staff of the Department of Education. Again, this is going to impact children with disabilities across the board. And again, every student, regardless of their ability, is granted the right to a quality education in this country. And because the government shut down, Taco instructed his other lapdog, Linda McMahon, who was Secretary of Education, for reasons beyond my comprehension, I don't know, outside of her buying her position, has turned around and fired several staff that fall under special education. And again, this is Project 2025 all over the place. And for all those that don't remember, it's reducing government staff, but it's also harming education, which again, if you're in a Democratic state, yeah, you'll probably be fine. If you're in a red state, good luck. But I feel for those that got let go, because again, with the government shutdown, only politicians are covered. Everybody else who assists those politicians, you're SOL. But now special needs students are about to pay the price because again, Taco wants the Department of Education gone. He realizes he cannot do that without an amendment. So what does he do? He poisons the foundation. That's what Republicans do all the time. If they can't outright get rid of something, they'll poison the foundation. They'll keep attacking it, chipping it off bit by bit. Or the analogy that I use, imagine that the Department of Education is a garden with one nice flower in the middle. You can't pluck that flower no matter how much you try. So what do? You ground and you poison the territory around it. And eventually you'll kill the flower. You just need time. And that's exactly what the Republicans are doing right now. They can't outright destroy or take down or dismantle the Department of Education. You can kill the foundations around it to make it crumble in on itself. And don't think for 1 second that's not the Republicans' plan. But speaking of the Republicans' plan, however, Taco feels slighted by China. So what does he say? I'm going to give them tariffs. And it kills me that he hasn't figured out by now. In a world of goods, you're not going to outdo China at all.
And President Trump announcing that the White House will impose a 100% tariff on Chinese imports, and it will go into effect it will go into effect on November 1st. Trump claiming the Chinese forced his hand, saying that these new tariffs come in response to China's aggressive position on trade. So for more on this, I want to bring in ABC's Christian Cordero. And Christian, what more do we know about these tariffs?
Well, the trade war between the U.S. and China, Alex, of course, has been going on for many months now. It was one of the focal points of the administration when it came to changing the tariff policies, the trade policies in the U.S. But most recently, just yesterday, China announced new restrictions on rare earth minerals, and that really kind of set the ball in motion as to what has happened in the past day or so. We saw President Trump criticize that, threaten tariffs, and immediately saw stocks act accordingly, which we'll get to in a minute. But really, when it comes to the announcement itself imposed on allegedly November 1st, as far as the president has announced today, he says that it is in response to China's extraordinarily aggressive position on trade related to export controls, and said that China sent letters to around the world threatening to impose export controls on each and every element of production having to do with rare earths. Rare earth minerals are used for things like semiconductors, computer-related resources. And he also, interestingly enough, said that there's no way China should be allowed to hold the world, quote unquote, captive, which critics note that is essentially what President Trump has been doing with a lot of the upheaval around trade policy here. So much to be seen, Alex, as far as, what happens next. But the truce that we have had with China is set to expire in less than a month. The two leaders were set to talk in a couple of weeks in South Korea, and that seems to be in limbo right now.
What I love about this is I keep saying this all the time. China, over the years, has basically fashioned themselves into a goods. It's almost like a Walmart you can't top. It's as if Walmart and Amazon had a baby, and that baby is the Antichrist. No, I'm just saying, not the Antichrist, but it's a giant. And a lot of people don't understand. A lot of our goods, electronics, things of that nature, Temu and all those other places you love to shop, guess where they all come from? China. And China knows it. We used to love China because they used to purchase our soybeans. And now, if you're paying attention to our last couple of podcasts, China's not buying our soybeans. China is not buying our soybeans. They're going to Brazil. And now soybean farmers are like, we need help. And it's like, you're telling Taco, and what does Taco want to do? Oh, I didn't get my appointment. You sound like someone that got stood up on a date. I'm going to put 100% tariff on them because they slighted me. Yeah. Do you really want China to do retaliatory tariffs? Because people think that these tariffs are a wonderful thing. They're not. Because at the end of the time, the consumer is the one that pays more. And that's the truth. The consumer pays more. It's not the businesses. The businesses will pass the cost along to the consumer. That's how it's always worked. And tariffs will never inspire American production or manufacturing. It doesn't. That's what grants are for. And it's amazing that Taco thinks by putting 100% tariff on China, that's going to make China come to the table. China's going to look at us and laugh their asses off because we are literally shooting ourselves in the foot and reloading. But again, this lets you know that Taco has no effing idea what tariffs are. But trust me, he'll blink first before China does. Moving right along, guys, this story came out about social media and kids that, hey, kids spending too much time on social media are hurting test scores. That can't be the only reason.
How social media is affecting preteens. Researchers finding the more time kids spend on sites like TikTok and Instagram, the lower their scores on reading and memory tests. Even just 1 hour a day on social media was found to have an impact.
This not only shows us that a small amount of social media can actually potentially interfere with learning, with school performance, but also that there's a dosage effect. So the more social media these kids are using, the worse they're doing.
The study of students ages 9 to 13 found about 1 hour per day on social media led to test scores 1 or 2 points lower. Those spending more time on social media saw a 4 to 5 point drop. While a few points may not seem like a big deal, doctors warn teens' social media use increases as they age, meaning more risks down the road.
We are essentially putting an entire generation of kids in an uncontrolled experiment with the amount of social media that's out there, with how addictive these phones are, and all of it ties together. And who knows what could potentially happen in 5, in 10, in 20 years.
Just yesterday, California became the latest state to require warning labels on certain social media sites when kids log on. Tech companies have defended their safeguards when it comes to kids online. Effective today, Instagram says it's limiting what teens can see and do on the platform. It says if a user under 18 searches for an adult topic or an account that typically posts content deemed inappropriate for minors, that content will now be blocked.
We really are striving for teens to be able to have an experience on Instagram that a parent would understand to be a PG-13 experience.
And that new study found nearly 2/3 of kids begin using social media before they're even 13 years old.
So let's think about this for a second. That what they're not saying is, well, what are kids actually focused on? Because if kids aren't actually focused on education, we keep on saying, if a kid is reading, they're reading or doing sports or doing any type of hobbies, test scores go up, reading levels go up, things of that nature. Kids are on social media because, well, smartphones are available. Social media is advertising more to kids. They are. But at the same time, my question is, why isn't social media being used for education? Like, here's my thing. You're never, unless you decide to ensure that your kid has no electronic devices whatsoever, you're not going to stop a kid from being anywhere on a social media site, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Fortnite, all Roblox, all the above. You're not going to stop them. But at the same time, can't we direct them? Like, I know for a lot of old school parents, my parents were like, no electronics in the house. You want entertainment? Go read a book. And that did lead to my life. That led to my love of reading books, of fantasy and science fiction, and led to my whole, that thing. And that's fine. But we know that too much social media, it's like you're not learning anything. You're consuming, but you're not learning. And that's the thing. These kids are consuming more social media than actually learning things. And yes, that's going to hurt them. But let's also look at education. Education hasn't changed since the 80s. Some charter schools and some private schools have gotten better about what they teach. But right now, we got a Department of Education out there that's too busy trying to whitewash and introduce PragerU shit. So yes, there is a lot of problems, but I think the problems can be solved by introducing things, utilizing technology to where kids are consuming knowledge and not social media. Then what do you know? Our test scores might actually go back up. But another story I wanted to catch, because this is Darwin at its finest, that in South Carolina, of all places, over 150 unvaccinated students are quarantining after exposure to measles. Let me repeat that for all those that didn't hear it. Over 150 students who are unvaccinated in South Carolina are quarantining after a measles exposure because, again, vaccinations, and I can't stress this enough, because whenever I see a vaccination story, whenever I see one, I immediately think Darwinism. I immediately think that somewhere along the lines, some parent sat there and said, I don't want my child vaccinated because of things I saw on the internet, or things I can't pronounce, or why is there so many things in this one shot? You sound very RFK-ish. And here's the thing. I will never understand you anti-vaxxers that you can literally go on the internet, do your own quote-unquote research, but you're not a physician, you're not a research scientist, you're not a nurse, you're not a health practitioner, you're not a healthcare professional, you never worked in hospitals or hospice things of that nature. You haven't done any of that except let your keys do the walking in cyberspace, and now all of a sudden you are a vaccine expert, versus someone who went to medical school, then residency, then boards, then clinicals, then certified, and recertified again, only to have someone like you come back and say, Cap. I'll never understand it, because vaccines do work. But in order for vaccines to work, everybody has to be vaccinated, because it's a herd immunity. And I know people got to go, well, what's the point of having vaccines if my child being unvaccinated can still get your child who's vaccinated sick? that tells me that you don't know shit about virology. And again, maybe you should be vaccinated and probably fixed, because if we could stop that line of stupidity, that'd be great. But the last story I got, guys, before we get to our feel-good news segment is I keep talking about history repeating itself, that, if, what Taco did, Taco was just the makeup remover for America. He showed America's true face. And those that follow him, because all they see is an old-ass white man doing and saying what he wants with zero consequence. Well, meet the newest bunch of Republicans that apparently get caught on chats. I'll bring this up for a second so you guys can see this, because this is a report by Politico. So these are messages that were among young GOP leaders that were joking about a lot of things. Like, everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. When do we bring that side out? Also, we are officially under consideration for a Trump endorsement. You're giving nationals too much credit and expecting the Jew to be honest. Great. I love Hitler. I'm ready to watch people burn now. Are you going to do whatever it takes? I'll go to the zoo if I wanted to watch a monkey play ball. If we ever had a leak of this chat, we would be cooked for real, for real. When do we start bullying dude? Kick the bitch. Everyone that endorsed but then votes for us is going to the gas chamber. It was rape. Boom, they're dead. He also hates the Jews. They love the watermelon people. Stay in the closet. Figure out that word. This girl is fully, figure out that word. And this was a group of young Republicans on Telegram chatting, right? And this is just, that's just tip of the iceberg. I'll even go down here where they talk about the gas chamber. Everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. And everyone that endorsed, but then votes for us is going to the gas chamber. When do we start bullying dude? We have a solid 3 people who can probably have them want to jump. If they vote for us, why would they be gas? When do we bring that side out? I'm going to create some of the most greatest psychological torture methods known to man. We only want true believers. In reply to, if they vote for us, why would they be gas? Can we fix the showers? Gas chambers don't fit the Hitler aesthetic. I'm ready to watch people burn now. We've got to pretend that we like them. Hey, come on in, take a nice shower and relax. Boom, they're dead. What does that tell you guys? And again, for all those in this group, because they're showing these people, and again, I can keep going down the list. These are all the folks. That guy in the picture, he's one of them. Lost his job, thankfully. But it's amazing where you sit there and say, I had some great back and forth with the VC in Michigan. Current chair is a deer in headlights. We have a call Wednesday. Many agree. He did say, my delegates I will vote for the most right-wing person. Great. I love Hitler. Guys, when I tell y'all the things that they said, and I don't mean to be graphic, and I probably should give a trigger warning before I said this, but even this one, Joe, did you look it up yet? Just did. Probably shouldn't have on my work computer. In reply to the Spanish came to America and had sex with every woman. Sex is gay. Sex, it was rape. Epic. This is the new generation, ladies and gentlemen. The new effing generation. And the last thing they sat there and said, if we ever had a leak of this chat, we will be cooked for real, for real. Well, guess what? A lot of you are. But here's the messed up part. I will say this, and this will be the only time I will say this on this podcast after looking at something like that. You know what? Y'all are Charlie Kirk. Because he would have loved this. He would have defended this. He would have called it freedom of speech. He would have called it just speaking their minds. He would have saw nothing wrong with it. And at the same time, that's the next generation. And what are they seeing? They're seeing an old, decrepit white man in the White House saying and doing whatever he wants with zero consequence. And now, if it wasn't for that chat getting leaked, history would repeat itself. And that alone is effing scary. But moving right along, guys, we're going to go into our feel-good segment because usually how the fact we got here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom, sometimes make you faith humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thursday. We will leave you guys out with some good vibrations, and hopefully the next story will do just that. I love teachers. I have a special place in my heart for educators, for those that take on the honorable profession of teaching the next generation. And if you're like me, you got kids, your kids say some things that just mystify you. like 6'7". What the? I'm sorry. 6'7", Sigma, whatever they say. Anyway, we as parents don't know what the frack it means. We're trying to figure out our doggone selves. A teacher took it upon themselves to say, okay, let me take these sayings and have them put it in a song.
Jennifer Tucker and a Muse boost.
Okay. Oh, I like that. Let's do it. One choir teacher is going viral after she asked students to write a song using their favorite slang words. Take a listen.
1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, skippity, 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, skippity. Ohio, a big back
Slay.
What's Ohio got to do with it?
Ohio's another one of those words we don't know what it means. But the teacher told Today.com, some teachers get frustrated by slang. That's not a battle I want to fight, so might as well use it to my advantage.
Genius.
Let's just embrace it and make it funny. I will say, I yelled out 6-7 at Mila's volleyball game the other day.
Why?
Because the score was 6-7. And her little friend goes 6-7. I go 6-7.
I was playing golf the other day, and I had a choice between my 6 and 7 iron.
Yeah.
And I was grabbing both, so I took a picture of 6-7. I sent it to my kids, and they were just they thought it was cringy.
Well, that's what I have to
I don't even know.
But here's the thing.
It means absolutely nothing.
No one knows what it means.
Adults start to, go on the way that we are.
we ruin
it's
it.
over.
It is
By the way,
over.
the
7
new
is
number
officially dead.
is 4-1. The kids are now.
What's that
What does
for?
that mean?
It means the same thing as 6-7. Absolutely nothing to us. But it's like, I think when I've heard them use it, I try to use some context clues. And sometimes when they use it, they're
being
dirty.
The kids are parents
I don't think it's naughty. I don't think it's naughty.
Dirty.
I've heard them use it in the car, and they'll be like, 6-7, 6-7.
Yeah, but that's,
I think you've got more problems than you know.
Also true.
All
Also
iPads
true.
and phones.
It is. I think
They're
there's
being
a song
communicated
that's
to
6-7.
from the
It's a
Matrix.
song,
But now they just
viral.
say
It was a basketball player. It was LaMelo. I think it was LaMelo Ball who started. I think it was LaMelo Ball.
Let me just say this as a parent. That's exactly the same conversation me and my wife have. What the frack is 6-7? My son says it all the time. And again, either way, got away from what I wanted. The teacher figured out a way like, look, if you can't beat them, join them, make it a song. And that's why I give teachers credit. You guys will take a situation and do the best you can with it and let the kids have fun. And at the same time, they learn something. Although, if someone ever figures out what the frack 6-7 means, please let me know. That being said, that's going to do it for this podcast. Thank you all for liking, for watching, for letting you know this is live. I certainly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Really do thank you for rocking with me. At the same time, guys, some shameless promotion before we do get out of here. Shout out to APR TV. Why? Because How the Frack is seen on APR TV, along with other shows as well. It can be seen on the Roku channel or Amazon Fire TV. Definitely check out APR TV. You will not be disappointed. Also, BlurStation.com. We've talked about this website for more than 2 years now, guys. It is content for us, by us, to enjoy. They have movies, television, anime, you name it, they have it. $10.99 a month to stream Blur Station. Go to BlurStation.com, select the Join Now button, select the Blur's Eye View Affinity membership, and myself, Black Spartan. Trust me, you will not be disappointed at the fire they have over there. Also, runforoffice.org. I keep talking about this site, guys, because one, next year is the midterms. Republicans are scared. Democrats need to saddle up. If you feel the need to serve, whether it's local or nationally, sites like this can help. To where you type in your address, it'll help you how to get your name on the ballot, hopefully to run, and hopefully be able to serve, whether in your city, state, or just your nation. Again, we do need more people, guys, more competent, smart people, not Republicans. Yes, I said it. To be available to actually help us turn this all around, because I believe we can if all of us get involved. Also, check out How the Frack We Got Here, guys, on YouTube. I'm so happy about this because if you do type in How the Frack We Got Here podcast on YouTube, our site does come up, which I'm very so proud of. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button. Be aware of any time that we do post something new on YouTube. Also, we are available on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. And also, our podcast is also audio scribed as well. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or Google Play. I forgot what they call it now. But wherever you get your podcast, you can definitely find us there. Also, my other show, my video game show that's hosted along with myself and my other guys, Tafara TV and Show Guy Joe, called the Get It Podcast. Also, the GB Podcast on YouTube. Definitely like, share, and subscribe. If you do follow all things video games, comic, anime, you know it. We talk about it. We certainly appreciate it. Again, guys, I will say this. Please don't doom scroll. Go out there, find some happiness. Fall is coming, because if you're like me, you're tired of summer. I would welcome the cold back in a heartbeat. But again, go find your peace, find your strength, check on your friends. The world's not as bad as you think it is, but we do need to have some joy in our lives, because that's how we're going to get through things. We smile through the tears, we hunker down, and we take care of each other. That's how we do it. That being said, guys, last thing to say about how the Frack Matter, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, guys. We are simply giving you all the information allowed to make up your own mind, but we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do better in society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past and making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first black woman as the Federal Reserve Governor, electing our first black woman to hopefully one day be Madam President. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up at our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and I promise we'll get through this. Live long and prosper. Yes, I'm a Trekkie. Yes, I believe in it. Hope you do too. Peace.